The Atlas happens every 20 years, so we decided to do a young birders session since obviously many of us will not have participated in the last Atlas. I know that at the age of 7, I definitely was not atlasing or doing point counts, so I'm sure many of you were in the same boat, or maybe many of you were potentially not even born yet 20 years ago. So I figured that this would be a good opportunity for us to all kind of get together and share a little bit about ourselves and kind of build a bit of a young atlasing community, since we will be kind of the next generation of atlasers 20 years from now. So I do have 5 panelists here. And the format is going to be that I will kind of be asking them questions, and they'll have a couple minutes just to give us a bit of an answer. So I'll go ahead and I'll introduce them here. So we have Jenny, Swapnil, Isla, Kitty, and Kaya. And so I'll tell you a little bit about each of them. I'll start off here with Jenny. Jenny has always loved animals and the outdoors, but her venture into the wonderful world of birding started in her university career. While working on her undergraduate degree at the University of Guelph, she started volunteering with raptors and reptiles used in education. Being surrounded by native animal species fostered her love for them and encouraged her to get out and learn more about them. She has since been working at the University of Guelph Arboretum as a naturalist intern. This will be Jenny's first breeding bird atlas, as many of us, and she is excited to be able to participate, use and improve her skills as a birder, and contribute to science. Next up, we have Swapnil. Swapnil is 21 years old and was born and raised in India. Swapnil has just completed a 2-year computer engineering program just the other day at Northern College in South Porcupine near Timmins in Northern Ontario. He loves to explore nature and learn about wildlife and birds. What he loves most about Northern Ontario is the varieties of bird species he gets to see right in his backyard, including the black bears that he kind of gets to see in his town. Next, we have Isla. So Isla has been bird watching for 6 years and bird banding for 4 years. She was the 2020 recipient of the Hamilton Naturalist Club Robert Currie Trophy for most bird species seen in a year by Young Birder. As a member of the Ontario Nature Youth Council, Isla has recently led an intro to birdwatching webinar for youth, and she is looking forward to leading bird walks for youth this spring. Isla is also a violinist and passionate environmentalist, and her current favorite bird is the ruby-crowned kinglet. So next, I'll give a little bit about Kitty. I see in the chat there are some people giving a little bit about themselves too, so that's great. It's really nice to be able to form that community. Kitty is currently a naturalist intern at the University of Guelph Arboretum, where she is lucky enough to be able to help connect people to nature every day. Kitty's love for wildlife and conservation began when she started volunteering as a keeper and educator with raptors and reptiles while studying in university. Birding as a hobby followed pretty naturally, and she has been hooked ever since. As a general atlaser for the Ontario Breeding Bird Atlas, she's very excited to be contributing to the first atlas, bringing her birding to the next level. And finally, last but not least, we have Kaya. So Kaya is an 18-year-old birder who grew up in the Bruce Peninsula. He's been fascinated with birds for most of his life, but he really got hooked on the avian world in 2017, so fairly recently, when he attended the inaugural OFO summer camp in Algonquin Park. So that was only 4 years ago. That's crazy. He has led hikes around Bruce County for the Bruce Birding Club and OFO. He's also an eBird regional reviewer for Bruce, Grey, and Huron counties. That's pretty impressive for 4 years of birding. Kaya is the regional coordinator for the Bruce County region of the Ontario Breeding Bird Atlas. Wow, that's pretty impressive, you guys. That's actually really awesome. Definitely puts me a little bit to shame. So I guess I'll start out by asking each of you the following questions, and you guys will have a couple of minutes to answer so we can get to know you guys a little bit more. Again, if anyone else has questions for our panelists, feel free to put them in the Q&A and we will have them answered. If you have a question for a specific panelist, feel free to address them specifically, and I will definitely make note of that as well. So we'll start out and we'll say, what region are you guys from and what got you into atlasing there? So I guess I'll go maybe in the same order that I kind of did the bios in. So we'll start off with Jenny.
Thanks. So I'm in Wellington and I'm interested in birding this area because I'd really love to get more familiar with my local patches and get to know a little bit more about what birds are hanging around breeding there through the summer.
Oh, that's awesome. Is there anything in specific that kind of like got you hooked in that area?
Yeah, so working at the Arboretum when things were a little bit more work at the office and less work at home, going around on hikes on our work day and seeing the birds going in and out of the bird boxes we have there are really awesome to have so many little native species right there for us to see. So I'd really love to be able to see more of that, see them maybe in the forest and not just in nest boxes or breeding and nesting in other spaces. So pretty excited about that.
Oh, that's great. No, that's really awesome way to get hooked in. Swapnil, what region are you from and what got you into atlasing there?
Hi everyone, I'm from Timmins, Ontario, and the birding. When I came to Timmins, I met Roxanne Fillion, who is also the regional coordinator of Region 41, and I met her, and she showed me around. And I have this lake right by my house that's called South Porcupine, and the area and the birds that I get to see in my backyard, that is the thing that got me into birding. And in addition to that, Roxanne Fillion in last fall, uh, she sighted a northern wheatear in just a couple of blocks away from my house. So that thing encouraged me to also register myself for Atlas. So I thought, let's just go ahead and take a look at how does it go, and it's for 5 years, right? So I can improve my birding along with my education for that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and such a great point that, the Atlas is a 5-year project. So even if you are newer to birding at the very start, you have 5 years to develop your skills, develop your birding skills and your atlasing skills. And then by the end, who knows, you could be doing point counts. Kind of
Yeah,
like
exactly. Who
Kaya's
knows?
bio, only been
Yeah,
birding for 4 years and already made it so far. So,
yeah, that's good.
definitely a lot of time to improve yourself and if you really work at it. So that's great. So yeah, Isla, what region are you from and what got you into atlasing there?
Yeah, I'm from Halton, Ontario, obviously Ontario. And I started birding after hearing the song The Northern Cardinal out of my window, which is so beautiful. And I had to learn more. And so at first it was just kind of like a like a light hobby, but after banding, it became more of a passion because we really got close to the birds and I really had a new appreciation for them. And for atlasing, I am excited to start atlasing because, again, you learn so much about birds. It's breeding is such an important part of their lifestyle, and also with COVID, there's not that much to do. You can't really travel very far to go see birds, and so that means that you can stay near your home and really discover the local birds that are breeding. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's the case for so many people. I feel like a lot of people are really getting into birding for the first time after kind of COVID hit and they had a moment to just stop and really appreciate their surroundings for maybe the first time. So that's a very excellent point. Um, Kitty, what region are you from and what got you into atlasing there?
Yeah, so I'm from Guelph, and my reason for atlasing there is very similar to Isla's. So, there's so many amazing places to visit here in Ontario, lots of provincial parks, national parks with birds are all over the place, all different ones. So it's really, really great to travel to see birds, but at the same time, it's been really great the past little bit because of the current situation to start birding more locally. So there's been lots of things that I've been able to find in my local area that I haven't been birding around as much in. So I'd really like to become more familiar with the local hotspots and see what birds I could find right out in my own backyard sometimes, which I think would be really cool.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, not even just the hot spots, but maybe the not so hot, not so lesser known spots, I guess I'll say, kind of off the beaten path and trying to really find all of the birds that might be around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kaya, so Kaya, what region are you from and what got you into atlasing?
So I'm from Region 8, also known as Bruce County. I got into birding when I was 14, as you said. And shortly after that, someone I know gave me Atlas 1 and 2, like the books. So I knew I wanted to be involved in it, like this atlas in some way. Then Mike Cadman contacted me about being the coordinator, so I jumped at that.
No, that's awesome. 14. I definitely did not have the mind to go out birding or even, try to think of that at 14. So that's really great. That's good. Okay, so the next question is going to be, how do you plan on participating in the Atlas? So I'm going to ask the panelists, and if you guys want to drop in the chat how you guys plan on participating, and if you don't know yet, hopefully this weekend will help you kind of figure out your spot in the Atlas too. So I'll go maybe in a little bit of a different order. I'll start with Isla. How do you plan on participating in the Atlas?
Oh boy, that's a big question. Well, I am a high school student, so that comes with certain limitations with like transportation and like lack of time to commit to a whole square. So I haven't committed to a whole square for now. But what I love about the Atlas is that anyone can submit observations anywhere. So I'm still going to, whenever I see breeding evidence, submit observations to that, and also share observations with maybe non-birders or people who are interested in learning more in order to teach them about the Atlas and hope that they learn about birds and gain new appreciation for birds. So kind of two parts: submitting observations and spreading the word and letting people know about the Atlas.
And honestly, that's such a not talked about enough part of the Atlas, kind of spreading the word too. A lot of us are birders. That's kind of what we want to do. We want to go out and get those birds, but such a big part of it is, like sharing the information or even just, spreading the word so that the project becomes that much better.
For sure. And it's those little moments when you're bird watching and someone comes up and asks what you're looking at. They make your day, because the curiosity, especially for younger kids as well, is always there. And I'm really looking forward to that part as well.
No, that's great. Awesome. Thank you so much. Swapnil, how do you plan on participating in the Atlas?
Well, I don't know much about the Northern Ontario birds that I get to see, but I know the general birds that I get to see, and I'll try to explore the nearby areas that I do have certain limitations of transportations as a young birder. So I'll try to cover up the nearby areas and the trails as much as I could. And I will also helping my regional coordinator, Roxanne Filion, if she needs any help with filing the atlas.
No, that's great. Yeah, it's always wonderful to reach out to your RCs and see if there's anything that they need help with, even if that's the way that you want to participate, right?
Yes.
It's kind of, I'm not sure if anyone was here for Sarah's session previously, just the way for people who are new birders to participate, but there's a lot of non-birding opportunities as well, just to kind of, help out, make the Atlas work, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go to Kitty. How do you plan on participating in the Atlas?
Yeah, so I'm mostly doing general atlasing for now. So submitting my observations when I can, trying to find as many breeding evidence for as many species as I can whenever I'm birding, and making sure that data gets online to the database. And again, like it was mentioned earlier, this is a 5-year project. So hopefully when my skills develop over time and I'm becoming a little bit better with bird calls and things like that and bird songs, then hopefully maybe I'll be able to contribute to things like point counts and things that may require a little bit more skill. So it's a really big challenge that I think I'm really looking forward to.
And that's honestly really a great goal to have, right? Like it kind of puts it, you have your 5 years to be able to get to that point, and it's a nice challenge for yourself too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I guess I'll go to Kaya. You mentioned briefly that you have a bit of a larger role in the Atlas as the regional coordinator. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so a lot of my time is going to be taken up doing coordinator stuff. So reviewing the data on the website, organizing all the volunteers, doing Zoom calls. So in my region, we have 68 squares. So I'm trying to find people for everyone. And on top of that, I've taken on 5 squares right now. So it's going to be a busy summer.
That does sound busy. I'm sure COVID's not helping, but like
No.
we've been saying, it is a 5-year project. So even if all of those squares aren't assigned right now, it could be that in future years someone is willing to take them on, or just by happenstance of people doing their general atlasing, it ends up being covered adequately.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. And Jenny, I don't think I've gone to you yet. How do you intend on participating or contributing to the Atlas?
So this is gonna be a year for me to be doing general atlasing. So I'm looking forward to kind of hitting up the local spots, trying to get as much breeding evidence as I can. And also I'm looking forward to challenging myself to visit spots I don't normally go to, maybe that are a little hidden away or smaller, not as familiar with, and try to get to know some of the birds there that might be near me. Maybe there are things there that I'm not expecting, which would be really nice for me personally, but also be nice for an atlas to contribute with that data. And like others said, I'm also hoping to develop my skills over years, maybe take on more squares or do more advanced things, point counts and things like that as we continue.
No, that's awesome. That's really great. It definitely is a learning opportunity, and that's kind of the whole inspiration behind this Young Birder session, is that we all, well, mostly are all learning. I know that myself, I am definitely still learning, and so a really good opportunity for us all to kind of connect and maybe learn together and help each other out. So yeah. Okay, so the next one we've talked a little bit about, but I'm going to ask it anyways. So what about atlasing appeals to you? What are you most excited for the Atlas? I'll start with Swapnil this time.
Well, about the atlas, I'm excited to see that all the breeding of all the different kind of bird species I get to see. So that's the best thing for me, that I've actually never seen what the breeding or the, as we learned before, that the safe date, actually how the birds actually do perform and how they live in that safe dates. So I would really, really looking forward to that how the birds actually raise their they raise their kids, and how the process actually is done.
Well, there's a presentation later today, I think, that Mike Burrell is giving on breeding codes and safe dates. So that'll be one to catch for sure. Just to learn a little bit more about it if you're still uncertain. But yeah, definitely an interesting topic, and one that a lot of people have a tough time kind of wrapping their head around. So totally fair if you're not 100% on that one yet.
Yes.
I guess next I'll go to Jenny. So what are you most excited for about the Atlas, and what about atlasing really appeals to you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really appeals to me with the Atlas is being able to contribute to like a citizen science project, taking something that's a hobby and having that be useful to other people. I think is pretty reinforcing. It's pretty cool. Just we're out birding for fun, but also we're helping scientists with data, which is always something awesome to be a part of. I also find that the more time I spend birding, more of it becomes less of just trying to identify the bird, though that's always fun with the challenge. But also it gets really fun to just sit and watch a bird and its behavior for a little bit, get familiar with things like displays, courtship displays, or trying to learn what counts as evidence for breeding and things like that, which I think will be pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree with you. I feel like one of the things that really appealed to me about the Atlas was the conservation aspect of it, and how you feel like you're contributing to something bigger. And to your point about just getting the opportunity to sit and watch the birds, I know that myself, sometimes I find myself doing that, and I almost like give them little personalities in my head when I see them doing stuff, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. So I'll move on to the next person before I embarrass myself too much. I'll go to Isla. So what are you most excited for the Atlas, and what about atlasing really appeals to you?
But before I start, I totally give them personalities as well. It's so fun to imagine them being like angry instead of territorial or something like that. Yeah, so as everyone kind of mentioned, atlasing appeals to me because it is a way to contribute to community science. And many people think that as a youth, we can't really do that. We don't have enough experience, but this is quite a simple way to contribute to a big project, a big publication. Yeah, and I'm most excited. Oh, many things. Probably the biggest thing is to like find breeding evidence for a notable species. Because, like, for example, last year I found a family of common mergansers, but only like after they had finished breeding. So my goal this year is to maybe find them before, when they're nest building or incubating. That would be super exciting, especially since where I live, that's not really a normal breeding bird. And just those kind of moments where you see evidence, you're like, oh my goodness, this is happening. This is such a magical process, and I'm watching it happen right there. And of course, I'm excited to learn all about breeding. There's so much to learn. Like, every single species is different. So I'm excited for that. Everything, basically everything. Yeah.
It is a good feeling when you're atlasing for the first time, and you're looking for breeding evidence, and you have the species, and you look at your safe dates, and you're like, wow, all of these things connect. I can actually put that breeding evidence in there. So yeah, I can definitely identify with that exciting feeling. And we do have 91 participants here, so feel free to let us know in the chat, what brings you here, what about atlasing appeals to you, and what kind of brought you here today. So yeah, feel free to let us know in the chat if you want. There is no right answer, so don't be shy. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead to Kitty and just say, what about atlasing appeals to you, and what are you most excited for the Atlas?
I think what atlasing appeals to me is because it's like a different type of birding. I think before this, when I go out birding, mostly it's doing bird counts, so counting all the species I can see. But now, instead of looking at just the number of species, you're looking at behavior. So you're looking at for things like maybe the bird singing, maybe you see it building a nest, maybe you see it occupied nest. All these different things is a whole new level of birding. It's like a game, right? And all of a sudden you're at a whole new level, and you're trying to get as much breeding evidence as you can. It brings like a new challenge to it, which I really like. And there's so much to learn for it as well. So learning, like, is this bird a cavity nester? What's the suitable habitat? When's the safe dates to consider them as a breeding bird? So all these different things, there's new things I'm learning every day, which makes me even appreciate the birds even more. So I think that's really great. And with the Bird Atlas, you're not doing it alone either. There's a big group of people all doing together. There's so many resources all of a sudden for you to learn from, whether there's these online webinars or other things like that, or people that you could contact with help. There's so many things to learn about and people to learn it with you. So I think it's a really, really great thing. And along with that, everything that you see is you're contributing to conservation. So hopefully the data that you're able to contribute will be able to do good for the birds that you do see during your bird surveys, which I think is really great. And just like recently, I saw a pileated woodpecker excavating a nest hole, which is like the first time that I've seen a bird make a nest, I think. So it was very, very exciting for me to try out this whole new side of birding, where instead of just looking for birds, I'm really following them and watching for their behavior as well.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Like, really noticing. Oh, sorry, Isla, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say, well said.
Yeah,
Your points are amazing, and I didn't even think like this is gonna help with conservation, which is so important, especially as youth, because it will impact us the most and the birds that we see in the future. Yeah.
And they're all skills that I think we can use for the rest of our lives too, which I think is great.
And in the next atlas, right? Think about it. You
Yeah.
know, we're young now, and in the next atlas, think, you know, if you have that 5-year goal of by the end of the atlas, I'm going to do point counts, then just think about where you're going to be by the time the next atlas rolls around. Kaya, I'm sorry, you're already in RC. I'm not sure how much further you can go. And I'm just
Maybe
joking.
we'll all be like Kaya for the next atlas.
Yeah, exactly. Kaya will be Mike Cadman coordinating the whole thing by then, right? All right, so Kaya, here we are with you. What about atlasing appeals to you, and what are you most excited for? You could potentially give us a bit of a spin on things since you're an RC here.
From a coordinating perspective, I'm honestly just excited for the whole thing, watching it unfold during the next 5 years. I think it'll be really cool to see data come in real time, going on the website, looking at the coverage map, and seeing all the squares fill up with species. I also think it'll be really fun, just like engaging people, getting them out, making sure everyone's having a good time. On the personal note, I'm really excited to do point counts and take a deeper dive into bird behavior. Like in the past, you're watching things, but you have to really slow down and watch the behavior to look for nesting and stuff like that.
No, that's a very, very excellent point. Yeah, I'm sure you're also excited to do those 5 squares this.
Yeah.
So Liam says that he's excited to be able to spend some quality time with his grandfather and continue with his lifelong interest. He's now 15 in birding, so he's the next Kaya. He's going to be our next RC. And so Emily was wondering if the panel members are on social media. She wants to know if they put out any bird content that she can follow. I know there's also a Young Birders account. I can't remember, it might just be Young Birders on Instagram. Young Birds, thank you very much. And so, oh, okay, yeah, I was right the first time. But yeah, no, I fully agree with all of you. I really do love this project. I feel like it's such a great combination of things I love, which is birding and people. So, you know, I don't think it really gets much better than the Atlas for that. And so, yeah, we do have some folks putting their Instagrams in the chat there. And so, oh, Sam says he's 14 and just got into birding in the last year. He's been rapidly becoming more and more engrossed by birding. So I think he thinks it'll be a really cool way to learn about birds and grow his love for birds. So that's really great. And it really is a great way to do that. So thank you very much for sharing. Okay, so we'll go on to the next question. And this is maybe not so personal, I suppose, maybe more just about atlasing in general, but what are some ways that you could find good places to go atlasing? So I guess I'll start with Kitty. We'll go with you first here.
I think one of the best ways that I found to find new spots to visit recently is on the eBird mobile app. If you have the app, there is an explore function, and that will show you all the local spots around you that people have visited and birded and submitted checklists for. So there are a lot of new spots that I didn't know about that I found through that. For example, in Guelph, there's a wetlands area with a bunch of birds like Virginia rails and gallinules and herons and things like that I didn't know was there like a year ago. So I found that through eBird. So eBird, I think, is a really great resource. And also just wandering, like if you have a a park near your house that you maybe haven't visited before, maybe check that out and see what's around. So a lot of local spots found just by wandering, which is really fun. Yeah. Kaylin, I think you are muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to do a technical thing and I was trying to say 1 second and I was just muted. So just 1 moment, please. All right, there we go. I think I've done the technical thing I need to do here. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. The eBird is a very handy way of finding great places to go birding. And if anyone wants to share the places that they go birding, you might want to say where you are, because if you just say the name of a random place, well, first of all, spatially sometimes unaware. So if you let us know where you're from and a great place that you found to go birding, you can add it in the chat as well. And so, yeah, I'm gonna go on to Isla. What are some ways that you can find good places to go atlasing?
Yeah, well, branching off of Kitty's point, I think getting involved in the birding community, especially virtually, is very important. So whether that's like signing up for eBird alerts, you can get daily emails with any notable birds, or you can join, I believe there's a Discord group and sometimes like email groups that you can join where you get updates. Normally they're about rare birds, but sometimes people will post interesting observations. And through those sites, you can also learn about where the great places are to go birding, and then you can maybe check those out for breeding evidence. And yeah, again, exploring is so important. Many people think that they have to go to like the best birding places, but honestly, there's probably a place near you that you're unaware of that you can find some cool birds. And especially with any stay-at-home orders, it's a great opportunity to kind of get to know your local area. And if you bird there every single day, you might actually get to see the progression of the breeding process, which is exciting. Yeah.
No, that's a great point of, if you go to the same place continually, and this is especially true for beginner birders, then you have a better chance of kind of catching things early. If you start there early in the season, there's not very many birds there. You can identify maybe the 3 or 4 species that you've got there as residents. And then as things start to come back, you can slowly be like, okay, this one wasn't here last time, so I'm going to figure this one out. So yeah, that's a really good point, and it does also play into the whole breeding evidence thing. If you're going there routinely, then you have a better sense of kind of what's going on. Perfect. Well, thank you. I'm going to go to Kaya. I've been doing him last a few times, so I guess I'll go to you now. What are some ways that you could find good places to go atlasing?
So the great thing about atlasing is that you can really do it anywhere, like even downtown cities looking for nesting pigeons. But as far as like looking for the best spots, I often employ a tactic I use when I'm just like generally birding, and that's birding by habitat. So even if you get familiar with like the 10 most common birds and go out from there, you can look at their nesting requirements, like what habitat they like, and you can drive around your square and look for that habitat. So like a good example, last year, I was out birding, and I really wanted to find cerulean warblers. So I was looking in my guides, and I see that they like tall, mature hardwoods. I found the stand, I got out, and I checked it a few times over a week, and I found a pair singing. So a great way is, yeah, birding by habitat, getting familiar with what birds like. And a lot of field guides have that, best habitat for each bird. I'd also echo what the previous speakers said. Use eBird. There's great resources on there. And also, yeah, reach out to your local birding clubs or local birders. They often know great over-the-way spots that aren't on many maps.
No, those are excellent points. I love that you really kind of broke that down into your plan. You have your plan and you're going to execute it, and that's really great. No, that's awesome. Okay, so next we'll go to Swapnil. So what are some ways that you could find some good places to go atlasing?
Well, most of the applications were mentioned by the previous speakers, so I will just go with Google Maps and Google Earth, because with the help of the Google Maps, you can just explore the area that where you can see the nearest forest area. Or now they also have the option to go on the street view, so that actually you can know that if it's a dense area to actually do the bird watching. And you can always ask the local members, as mentioned by the recent speakers.
Great, thank you. And Jenny, do you have anything to add? I know that a lot of the good ideas are taken early on.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I feel like I am like also a big fan of eBird. So, at risk of sounding like a broken record, I just like explore your eBird hotspots, see what's around. Even some spaces aren't listed as hotspots, but people are seeing birds there are worth checking out. Getting kind of involved in community or local community, attending panelists like this or attending webinars like this and meeting panelists or other birders in your area. I feel like everybody has their favorite little local spot. So talking to them and seeing where they go and maybe sharing some spots that you found are pretty nice, then you can kind of figure out what are some nice places to visit near you.
I have one more thing to add that I just thought of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so if you go to the link that I put in the chat, ebird.org/hotspots, I believe there's a setting where you can it'll just show you the hotspots that people have visited in like the last week or something. And then from there you can see, because some hotspots might be really active in the winter or at a time when birds are not breeding. So that's a really good way as well to know where the birders are active right now. That will help you as well.
No, that's an excellent point. And yeah, I guess another thing, Kaya kind of mentioned briefly with the field guides, is that the atlas is also a handy tool, Atlas 2, a handy tool to be able to kind of like figure out where birds might be. And we do have someone in the chat. Sam says he's 10 years old and he birds at Whitefish Island in Sault Ste. Marie. Thanks so much, Sam. If there's anyone else from Sault Ste. Marie here, then they might benefit from you sharing this with us. So that's really appreciated. All right, so, and this is our last question already. Oh my gosh, it's already 5 after 1, that's crazy. Okay, so my last question is going to be, what are some barriers that you've experienced in birding and how did you navigate those? I know some of you briefly mentioned, you know, being young birders and transportation issues, but I'll let you elaborate on that more because yeah, you guys are the panelists here. So I'm going to start. Ooh, who will I choose? I'll start with Jenny this time.
Thanks. So I feel like with any hobby, when you first get into it, you hit certain barriers. I think one of the things that I found kind of tricky with birding is when you first get started, it sometimes feels kind of overwhelming. Birds are so diverse. There's so many. So trying to learn everything as much as you can be tricky, especially if you're out in a field and you're trying to identify the birds flying away from you or in the leaves, or maybe you can't even see it. It's just making noise. So I think one of the things that helped me overcome that was I know it makes it tricky right now with the current climate, but to get out with more experienced birders and just practice. The more you get out there, the more you familiarize yourself with birds around you. Make really good use of your field guides, you know, make sure you're looking at all the little details. And also, I love eBird. So eBird also have little quizzes that you can take. So you can make the settings for where in the world that you want to take your quizzes on, whether it's your little local area or maybe a whole country, what time that you want to be taking these quizzes on, and they'll show you pictures that people have submitted, and you can practice your identification that way, which is lots of fun. So after a while, it's like a bit of a game, right? So you start off, you're like, well, now I know this bird and breeding plumage. Can I learn what's call sounds like? Can I identify it in non-breeding plumage? Maybe I get to know what's courtship displays look like, or what type of habitat it likes to nest in. So it kind of becomes more of a game, and your knowledge snowballs and snowballs. And then after a while, it doesn't even feel like you're learning, but all of a sudden you know so much, and it's great. So that's always really fun, a challenge, but I think one of the things that makes birding kind of fun. And I think another challenge is sometimes with birding, it can, when you first join it looks intimidating in that maybe you want to have all this equipment, a scope, you know, fancy binoculars, and sometimes it can get kind of cost prohibitive, which can be a little bit of a challenge. So, you know, I always recommend look at maybe gently used equipment. If you're just starting out, it's always great option, and you can always upgrade as you get further along and maybe decide you want more equipment. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to have like the top of the line scopes or binoculars, whatever is available. Sometimes just taking a walk in a park, even without binoculars, you can hear birds singing or maybe see birds showing breeding evidence. And that's always something that you can use to contribute to the Atlas too.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. You had a few really good points there that I want to make note of. And the first is, you know, learning resources. We do have some on the Atlas website. I can always put it in the chat so that people have access to that as well. But, you know, those learning resources are really handy. It can be really overwhelming, especially if you just dive into it in the middle of the breeding season. And the second one I want to mention is kind of, you know, the cost of equipment. And that fully resonates with me because I used to feel very frustrated by birding. And I almost, you know, I just kind of would just be like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter, like, and kind of almost give up on it because, the equipment, I could never see anything there's anyway. And so it wasn't until I got kind of like my first pair of binos that I was like, okay, I get what people are on about now. I can actually see what I'm looking at. So yeah, that's a really good point, is that it can sometimes be challenging. And those were some pretty good solutions that you offered there, of getting gently used equipment or starting out and just, seeing what's in your surroundings. So thank you. Okay, I'll go on to Swapnil. What are some barriers or challenges that you've experienced with birding, and how did you navigate those?
Well, first barrier that I experienced was that you have to manage the school time, work time, and your birding. So you have a little less time to just go out and do birding. But I completed my college yesterday, so that doesn't apply to me. But there are still some young birders who are struggling with that. So that's the first barrier. And the other one is that with the accordance of the transportation, there are still, especially in Northern Ontario, we have a lot of remote squares in regions assigned to us that we cannot actually remotely go there. So I think the remote squares are also the barriers that we cannot actually explore.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know that in some of the northern regions, there are like remote trips that get done, but you're correct in that we sometimes just have to pick a few squares in every block that we're able to do, and you're right, just kind of one of the barriers that we have to things.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so next I'll go to Isla. What are some barriers or challenges that you've experienced in birding, and how did you navigate them?
Gosh, I feel like my ideas were already stolen. Well, I think a big one that hasn't really been mentioned is that there aren't that many young birders. It's like we have a very small demographic in the birding community, and sometimes it feels like well, as youth, you naturally want to connect with people and to share the same hobbies. So being like probably the only bird watcher in my high school of 1,000 people was a little bit overwhelming, and at times it felt like I didn't want to be a bird watcher. Teenage insecurities, yay. But I think that through connecting with the birding community virtually, and by joining like environmentally focused groups for youth, I was really able to connect with youth that really cared for the environment and shared the same values when it comes to taking care of nature. For example, the Ontario Nature Youth Council, I joined that this year. You might have heard of it. It's a fantastic club, and everyone there is really passionate about nature. So if you're a young person in high school and you're interested in connecting with other people who care for the environment, that's a great opportunity. Often their school will have like an eco council or an environment club as well. So that's like one. I'm kind of going off track here a little bit. That's probably the biggest barrier, was kind of feeling alone in the birding world, and also not having enough time. Yeah, as Swapnil mentioned, like balancing life is a bit hard, and birding requires patience and time. You have to learn about every single bird, and it's not just you walk outside and then all the birds are there. You have to look for them and go into different places. And sometimes when school starts really early, getting up early is kind of difficult as well. So yeah, those I would say those would be the biggest barriers for me. But I've been really lucky because my family's very supportive of birding. So overall, it's been an amazing experience.
No, that's an excellent point. And, thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like, it may seem hard, obviously. I'm happy that you found your people, I guess you could say, or people that share your interest. I can imagine that would be very difficult in high school. And I think it's really impressive. And I said the same about Kaya, that you are in high school and so passionate about this and making great strides. In high school, I have no idea what I was doing in high school, but it definitely wasn't that. So you know what, that's really impressive. And I feel like future you will be very proud of you now.
I just want to add one point. What Ayla said, that having supportive parents is also a really good point to start birding, because I didn't start birding until my parents introduced me to one of the local groups because they were the first who actually started birding. So I dedicated all my birding life to them because they were the one who supported me, and now they are asking me to identify some of the birds. So I really think that that is a really good point that Ayla said, that having supporting parents is really a good point to start birding in young age.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really awesome that that your parents were so supportive and really had the forethought to get you into that. I feel like my I obviously love my parents, but they're not into birding, so then as a result I was not into birding at a young age. So that's really awesome and a really great point. Okay, we have a couple people left, so I'll go to Kitty. What are some barriers you've experienced in birding and how did you navigate those? I know a lot of them have been taken, so if you have anything.
Yeah, so I think my answer will be a bunch of things that the other people have said so far. Starting out, especially, I have a lot of insecurities with like, it's my ID, right? Like, am I seeing the bird right? What is this bird song? I can't identify the bird, you know? So, you know, that's always a big challenge. I think it could be a really big learning curve sometimes when you get into birding, especially when you like, you know, get into new group like shorebirds or gulls, like all of a sudden, like, what am I looking at? But one of the best things I found for learning that kind of stuff is doing it with friends and learning as a group and going out with more experienced birders. So it becomes a really fun thing to start learning all these things because you're doing it with other people as well. It becomes a social event as well. But of course, more recently, it can be difficult to do. And like Ayla mentioned as well, it can be hard to find people to do that with sometimes. But one thing that I found that has helped is to, you know, start inviting people to go birding that maybe aren't big birders like you are. So, you know, I like Kaylin was not very much into birding in high school. When I was younger, I was from the city. My parents weren't very into that kind of stuff. I got introduced to birding in university by a friend, and I've been obsessed ever since. It's become a big part of my life. And with people that maybe aren't as into birding as you are, you can still invite them on birding trips and make it a little social thing. Of course, right now, maybe stick to your own household. Like I invite my roommate to go birding with me sometimes. And maybe you could be the spark that sparks somebody else's birding interest, which would be really great. So you could build your own little community, even if you feel like, you know, nobody in your school, if you're in school, if nobody around you likes birding, maybe you could introduce them to it. Maybe they'll learn to like it, and you could form your own little birding bubble, which I have done with a couple of my friends as well. It's lots of fun.
No, that's great. That is very true. You know, you never know who will be into it. I know that my partner, I never in a million years thought he'd be into birding, and I went one day and he was like, "Oh, well, next time you go, like, can I go with you?" And so, you know, you never know who might be interested in it. You never know who might be the next atlaser or birder. And so, yeah, that's a really great point. All right. Lastly, we have Kaya. Any barriers or challenges that you've experienced in birding and how you navigated them? And again, I know a lot of them have been taken already, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's hard going last. So I think I'd just like to echo what other people have said. Definitely getting into it, like if you're under 18. Driving can be a big issue. So in my area, I'm in North Bruce, which for Southern Ontario, it's fairly remote. Like when I started out, I wanted to go on birding hikes, and they were all like 60 to 100 kilometers away. So a great solution is contacting your local birding club if you have one, or just local birders in general. And of course, this is more of like a post-COVID thing. But I found a lot of people were willing to give me rides or go out to local areas and teach me about birding. So yeah, the birding community in general are really friendly people. So just have to get out there and engage them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've had the same experience where everyone has been, you know, super friendly. Obviously, COVID is a little bit limiting right now in terms of ride shares and stuff like that. So hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to go back to that and have more of a community sense. But until then, we have our panels and we're building our own little young birding community here. And I know that someone did mention that they really found this helpful, despite the fact that they felt that they were on the older side, over 30. And I just want to say that, you know, not necessarily an age thing. I'm 27. I was deciding if I'm young or not, which to do this panel, I'm just joking. But it really is just about, you know, if you're just getting into atlasing, we're probably all in the same boat here. And so I'm glad that you're able to take away something from that. And so we do have a question. Roxanne says, just for fun, tell us one of your favorite bird sighting or bird moment ever. It doesn't have to be Atlas related. So yeah, I guess maybe ponder on that for a moment. Whoever's ready first, you can just wave at me. We're having a few thoughts.
I
Yeah,
feel
go
like
ahead,
I
Jenny.
have a lot of favorite birding moments. It's like the next exciting, but I'm like, this is my favorite birding moment ever. But the one I can think of off the top of my head is a little while ago, a couple of friends and I, we were like on the search for short-eared owls. You know, we've never seen them before. We'd love to see them. So we make a big trek out to an area where people have been reporting them, but they haven't been reported for a little bit. So we kind of stake out the field where they've been noted. And, you know, dusk comes, there's no owls. We drive around the roads, there's no owls. So we're kind of like feeling bummed. We're like, okay, well, this is a miss. You know, we tried, we gave it our all. And then we decide to try one more road that like people haven't really been reporting at just to see. And we drive up and immediately a short-eared owl pops up and then two more take off from the field. And it was just like the best feeling ever. It was so cool. So I think that's one of my favorite moments that comes to mind. Just like surprise birds.
You can never go wrong with surprise birds, honestly. Does anyone else have a great birding moment? Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, so we'll go with Kitty and then Swapnil and then Isla and then Kaya. That's just the order.
Yeah, okay, so I think one of my absolute favorite birding moments was from several years ago, and it has to do with the birding community. The birding community is amazing. They're so full of people that want to help you. This is at a Hawk Watch in Port Stanley, and we went in and was sitting down watching for migrating raptors, and I told one of the people there who does like the formal counts, so they're very experienced with that kind of stuff, and I was fairly new into birding at this point, and I told them I want to see a peregrine falcon because peregrine falcons are my absolute favorite bird. I have one tattooed on my body. That's how much I love them. They're great. But I told them I want to see a peregrine falcon, and they were so nice. Not only the whole time they were helping us identify birds, because you think you know raptors, but when you see hundreds of them way up in the sky migrating way above you, it's a whole new ball game. But they were so nice about helping us identify the birds that we were seeing. We didn't see a peregrine falcon like the whole time I was standing there. So as I was walking back to go home, I was walking away from the site to the car. These people, so nice, remembering that I want to see a peregrine falcon, they came out, yelled out, peregrine falcon, up ahead. So I looked ahead and it flew right above me. So I think one of those hawk watching events like that are some of my favorite times of the year for bird watching, because it's such a big community of people that are so ready to help you. And birding with all these people that love the same thing you do is a really amazing experience. So that's one of my favorite, I think, birding moments.
No, that's so nice. That's honestly so great. And I'm really happy to hear that other people are sharing the same kind of positive experiences of the birding community that I have. So that's really nice. Okay, we'll go to Swapnil.
Hi, so I have a really great story and the best moment of the bird watching I ever had with Roxanne Fillion, of course, because she's the one who introduced me with the City of Timins. So I was in, it was Friday afternoon, and I was in my Zoom call with my professor, and I received a message from Roxanne that there's a great horned owl, because I haven't seen any owls even in India. Like I have seen owlets, like spotted owlets, forest owlet, but I haven't seen any owls at all. So I wanted to see owls here, and I never saw one. So Roxanne informed me that there is a great horned owl right here, like right behind her house. There was a trail. So I told my professor that I'm gonna go, and he knew that I was doing bird watching. So he said, "Yeah, okay, you can take off." So within 5 moments, I got ready. I grabbed my camera. I ran to the trail, and we ran 1 mile into the trail in snow with all the jackets and all, and it was right there, like on top of the tree. It was right there, and I saw that great horned owl for at least an hour. So I think that was the best birding experience I've ever had. Like, you can go to the trail. I saw everything in just an hour and a half. So that was the bird. That was the best experience.
I really like that your professor was just like, all right, bye.
Yeah, they're really great because wherever I go, I always introduce myself to my professors, because this thing is gonna happen. It doesn't matter where I'm if I'm at work, and or if I'm at school. They know that this thing is really important to me, because I want to really dedicate my life into this thing. So they were really supportive, so he let me go, and I got to see this owl, and I got to see a lifer.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's a really great story. I like that one a lot. Isla, you're gonna have to top that somehow. Or not. I
No,
mean,
I'll do my best. Well, I've been reflecting on the past couple years of birding, and I realized that the moments that stick out the most, it's either like when you are looking for something for hours and hours, and then it shows up when you least expect it, or when you have to work really hard to find a bird. It just, the joy is overwhelming. You're just so happy, and you really, really, truly appreciate the bird so much more. Um, I would say my big bird moment would be when the brown booby came in last September. We weren't able to go for the first for the first day or two, and finally my parents were able to drive me in the morning. But smart me didn't realize that it would be super foggy in the morning. So we got there, and I could barely see 2 meters out into Lake Ontario, and I was just like, my heart dropped. I'm like, no, all I want to do is see this super cool bird that got like 100 people excited or something. And unfortunately, they weren't able to drive me later on, but I really, really wanted to see it. So I said, okay, I'm doing this. I'm grabbing my bike, and I'm biking 2 hours to see the bird. And I did it, and by the time I got there, I was just like so exhausted and out of breath, but everyone that was there was so friendly and pointed it out. And the bonus was that because I biked on my way there, I was able to see black-bellied plovers, which was like a little and sanderlings, and that was a really special, plovers, my goodness. That was a really special moment that I wouldn't have missed if I hadn't biked. So that's my story.
I was on mute, but I audibly said no as you said no about the fog being there. I'm glad I was on mute, because I would have ruined your story a little bit with that one.
Oh,
but-
no worries, no worries. Yeah, it was definitely I learned from that experience a lot.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Look up the weather forecast, guys. Look up the weather forecast before you go birding.
I mean, if you're determined enough to bike 2 hours, then, you could just not look at the weather. No, just joking. Okay, so Kaya, you're last here, and we have a few people thanking you guys. I just want to say that now, for sharing all of your stories and your inspiring moments. So yeah, thank you. But I'll thank you again after Kaya tells us about his exciting birding moment.
So it's always hard when someone asks, what is your favorite bird moment? Because when you've been birding for years, you have so many. And instead of mentioning like an overly rare bird, I've seen quite a few, but I'll just go with my favorite experience. So last winter, I went up to Cochrane with a bunch of my young birder friends. We were kind of on a winter trip for specialty birds. And we were going up the Detour Gold Mine Road north of Cochrane. It's this crazy long road, snow everywhere. And we spot some sharp-tailed grouse beside the road. So we stop, we get the scope on the sharp-tailed grouse. Then someone finds a hawk owl beside the road. We're looking at that. We're thinking this is like the best moment. It cannot get any better. And then this falcon shoots out of the forest behind us. And it's a gyrfalcon. And the gyrfalcon chases the sharp-tailed grouse away. Then it dives at the hawk owl. So it's literally like the 3 most wanted birds for our trip. And no one had gyrfalcon on their minds. So crazy. But yeah, really hard to top that in my opinion.
That's really crazy. And I feel like you broke up a bit. So right at the punch where you said it, what it was, everyone was just waiting. And then you said it again and everyone's face lit up at once. So yeah, that's pretty great. But holy moly, yeah, that is a really great story. Thank you guys. And thank you so much for sharing. We're getting so many thank yous in the comments for sharing the stories and enthusiasm and tips. So I feel like we really accomplished our goal of, kind of sharing our knowledge and helping build our community of young atlasers so that we can all become better atlasers or better versions of our birding selves. So thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.